every mistake is an opportunity for growth and not an opportunity for punishment, like self-punishment. I would just say that to myself and anyone who wants to pursue this career as well. It's definitely worth trying, and quite frankly, no matter what the result, no matter what the outcome, you're always going to grow as a person and a player. So, yes. Every time I go into like a new environment, I always am like, you know what, like if I don't get it on the first try, then I'm bad. But it's like that's not the case. Like you need to give yourself time and just be patient with yourself to adjust to this new environment. How are you supposed to know, what you're doing when it's your first day there, and all these folks are doing this reflect like so many more years than you. So I gave myself the time to go like, okay, like it's okay if you're not playing well, if you're playing bad, because it's not going to be like forever. It's going to get better. You have no choice but to get better. Just playing against better competition.
Welcome here on Sandy Bay Media for this episode. I'm joined by Emily and Keri over in Iceland, who play for Haukar over in the first division in the Women's League. And we're going to have a chat about their experience. We're going to touch on their college experience playing in the US before heading over to Europe to pursue a career as professional footballers. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Good to have you on. Fantastic. Well, let's just get a little bit of a background on your college experience and sort of that kind of thing before you headed overseas. Emily?
Okay, so 2012, but it wasn't the best fit, so I ended up transferring to the University of Connecticut in Storrs, Connecticut, and I was there for all 4 years. I got to play 4 years because I redshirted at Boston College. So I was able to graduate with my master's and pursue my elementary education dreams. And it was important to me to finish college before pursuing any type of professional career, because I know that professional careers only last however long. But my teaching career is going to last much longer. So I wanted to finish that up before I pursued anything. And once I graduated, I decided to go train with the Washington Spirit for a couple of weeks and basically stay fit and have a good opportunity to train with some talented players. But a few weeks in, I decided I wanted to go overseas and play with the team. And so in July of 2017, I signed with Meshula and went over there for the second half of their season. So that was my first professional experience. And I kind of figured that having half a season would be perfect, because if I hated it, being overseas and away from my family, it was just 4 months. It was kind of like a trial period for me. So, I ended up enjoying the experience. Definitely had ups and downs. That season was tough, but I met some really amazing people. So I decided to continue on. I don't know if I should start talking about that now or...
We'll touch on that a little bit later.
Okay.
And thanks for that. We'll definitely pull that apart and go through that, because it really does sound interesting. Keri, what about yourself?
So I went to the University of Illinois Chicago, UIC, from 2017 to 2021. And that was definitely an interesting but really great experience. I went through like 3 different head coaches, so there's a lot of coaching changes. So it was kind of difficult, having to show for every new coach to like, oh my God, I'm getting nervous. Just basically you have to prove yourself to every new coach that like you deserve to be there and that like you want to be playing, stuff like that. But I made a lot of great friends and I love it there so much, and I wouldn't trade it for any other college, free time. And I knew I wanted to play professionally after college as well. And I really didn't know how the process worked. So I was just trying to keep myself in shape, kind of like Emily was trying to keep herself in shape as well. And then I got the opportunity to come here and play overseas, and I definitely was like, I wanted to do it. And it's a shorter season too. Emily was saying how the other seasons run so much longer. This is only 5-6 months. I'm like, okay, this is not that great, then I know I don't have to ever do it again, but I definitely do want to continue it, and it's been a great experience.
Awesome. It's excellent to hear that, and it's great to see that the both of you stuck it out, and that, as Emily was saying, you know, dipping your toes into the water, seeing how you go, and it's worked out, which is amazing. All right, and let's go back to what you were saying a little bit earlier. Let's go for it.
Okay, so after my first half season in Norway, I came home, and at that point I was trying to find a new club. I was signed with a different agent at the time. I'm now with Michael, but I didn't find EBVOF, my agent did. And so I went over there, went to Iceland in February. It was very cold. I was welcomed with a giant snowstorm, and I didn't know the neighborhood had sidewalks until like 3 weeks in, because they were covered in snow, and I was like, everyone just walks on the road here? That's weird. But yeah, it was definitely a different experience because the Westman Islands, it's one of the windiest places in Iceland, and so having a football pitch right by the ocean, I had to adapt my game, because being a goalkeeper, you have to read the ball and the flight of the ball on crosses and services, and sometimes the ball would just drop, or sometimes it would just take off, and so I had to adapt my game on the fly, because there's no time to have that trial and error period when you're playing. So it was interesting. That season there were some challenges, but at the same time I met one of my best friends ever. So it was a cool experience for me, and to get a whole season under my belt was also important, I think, just to be with the team for a full season instead of a half of the season. You get to connect a little bit more with the players. So that was fun.
It was brilliant to hear that, and it's amazing to hear that experience that you've gone through, and especially adjusting to Iceland. So I'm really keen to hear Keri's first season in Iceland and how that's gone. I mean, did you have a bit of a similar experience where you didn't know where the sidewalk was?
All the girls were saying, like, when I came in, like, you came at the perfect time, because, like, the snow was, like, starting to go away, and, like, there really wasn't any snow on the ground, like, maybe a little bit. So, yeah, the weather wasn't terrible, but it was still really, really cold. Because, so it took a while to get my player visa, so I got to watch a couple of games before, and it was still cold. I was like, how are they playing right now? Like, I don't think I feel this survive in this climate. But yeah, then it started getting warmer. But still, it's not like, hot like New York. So like when I went back home, I was like, oh my god, I'm dying. It's like 80 degrees outside. And then back here, it's like, oh, it's like in the 50s. Like, it's really sad. So I guess I've adapted to the climate here.
That's excellent to hear. Okay, well, I want to touch on the footballing side of things. So obviously, both of you have come from, I think it was D1 over in the States. Emily, starting with yourself, you came a little bit, a couple more seasons ago compared to Keri. How did you first find it in terms of on the football side of things on the pitch?
So professional compared to collegiate?
Yeah.
So I found that the speed of play was a little bit different. Going from college, I had a really solid college team, and quite a few of those players actually went on to play professional as well. But going overseas to Europe, it was a different game. I find that in general, there's more physicality. Depending on what league you're in, even just the different countries, Norway compared to Sweden, compared to Iceland, they're a little bit different in how they play. For example, Iceland is a little less technical and a little more physical. So you have to get used to, getting hit, getting hit more often. And it's tougher. Definitely have to prepare your body for it. And I'd say overall, the speed of play was a little bit quicker, but I'm at that point now where I can't really remember because I've been playing professional almost as long as I played collegiate. I think maybe a little more. It's crazy. So I think the speed of play would be the biggest adjustment I had to make. And also just reconnecting with a whole different group of people every season for the most part. Like, you're with your college or teammates for 4 years, and you lose some and you gain some, but if someone's in your class, you're with them for 4 years, you create that chemistry and that relationship. So then going overseas and having to adapt to a different culture and create those connections with players, it's tough because you don't really have the time. You don't have 4 years to make those connections. You have maybe 1 month, 1.5 months of preseason. So I could say that's also something. It's just building up that connection, especially being a goalkeeper with my back line. It's so important.
Yeah, no, completely agree with you there. And the other thing is, being in that professional environment, players are on pro contracts, players move around quite heavily, and as Keri was saying a little bit earlier, head coaches change every now and then. So, yeah, and 12-month contracts in and out, so it is a different environment. You don't have that 4-year period where you get to know at least 90% of your team. So it's interesting you mentioned that. So hopefully this will give a bit more insight into our American viewers who will be seeing this, especially in the college space, so they get a bit of an idea. So thanks for that. So, and Keri, yourself, so what's been your first year like, but also looking at how you found it as we touched on a little bit earlier, this is your first season there now. What are some of the differences that you found, like, coming out of college into the Pro League?
Definitely what Emily was saying, speed of play is so much faster at this level than it was at the collegiate level. Like, even looking back at my highlight videos that I made, and it just looks so much slower. And you just don't realize that, like, you adapt to your environment until I started watching it. It's like, oh my god, like, it really was so much slower than it is now. That's definitely the biggest adjustment. I remember my first practice when I came here. I was like, this is moving so quick. Like, I feel like I'm not used to this. So I definitely say that's the biggest from college to here. It's beautiful. And also, you know, someone at your back before you're getting involved. So, like, smash on your face. But, yeah, I like it.
Awesome to hear that. Speaking about, as we just touched on, one of the biggest difference between collegiate and playing pro is that speed of play. What advice would you maybe give back to your younger self on adjusting to that, or sort of helping you set up to going pro? Emily?
To the speed of play, I would just say, if I knew everything I know now when I was coming out of college, I would just say it's okay to have that adjustment period, be a little bit more forgiving, process of growth. But also, I found that there were some games I was so incredibly nervous because I wanted to be perfect, and just acknowledging that no one's perfect, and every mishap is an opportunity to grow as a player versus an opportunity for someone to, I don't know words to say, so maybe we can cut that. But every mistake is an opportunity for growth and not an opportunity for punishment. Like, self-punishment. I would just say that to myself and anyone who wants to pursue this career as well. It's definitely worth trying, and quite frankly, no matter what the result, no matter what the outcome, you're always going to grow as a person and a player. So, yes.
Exactly. You know what you were saying, and you put it there perfectly. And I think, especially as a goalkeeper, like we as a goalkeepers are more harsh on ourselves than anyone else is. So excellent advice there. And Keri, the same question to you.
Yes. I think advice that I would give to somebody, and also advice I took for myself coming here. That sounds quite stupid, but I said to myself, just give your time to suck. Because every time I go into like a new environment, I always am like, you know what, like if I don't get it on the first try, then I'm bad. But it's like that's not the case. Like you need to give yourself time and just be patient with yourself to adjust to this new environment. How are you supposed to know what you're doing when it's your first day there and all these skills you're doing this reflect like so many more years in you. So I gave myself the time to go like, okay, like it's okay if you're not playing well, if you're playing bad, because it's not going to be like forever. You're going to get better. You have no choice but to get better. Just playing against better competition.
No, I think that both of those pieces of advice are excellent, and hopefully they'll be able to help people, but also they'll be able to help the two of you in your next journey or your next future plans where you go. Just remember that, I think. Well, look, thank you to the both of you for joining us and having a quick chat, touching on your college experience, touching on, turning pro and what that was like. So I really appreciate that. And we look forward to talking to you more over the next couple of months, but also in the future. Thank you once again.
Yeah, of course. Yes. It was nice chatting.
Yes.